So, how are you today? This is my very first question.
I am great. I'm having fun. It's lovely to be back in Berlin. It's hot and warm, and everyone is looking lovely, so that's great. I'm good.
Great. And then my next important question, since we are having this book of yours, Dreams and Assorted Nightmares, did you dream well today or did you had a nightmare?
It was a nightmare coming. So in this instance, my coming to Berlin is a nightmare, but my being here is a dream. So
Yes, those poets among us and those who are trying. So, how shall I start? Your books capture in a very unique way human lives, relationships, some might say tragedies, from an area in Nigeria, as we already discussed, that we ought to hear even more. And today I would like to know, what story have you brought for us?
what story? It depends what kind of story you want. All of us are stories. Everything we do is a story. And every thought we have is a story. And it depends which one we want to connect with and explore. So we're here with all of the books, and we can talk about any one you want.
Great, I get a choice. I love this. So I choose this one. I've already had the pleasure to reading some of the short stories, but I feel like, what is the story that you feel like you want to share with us and you would like to talk to us about?
Okay. You want me to do a reading?
That would be good.
Yeah. Do you guys want to hear a reading or something? Yeah? Yeah, great. Okay, so let's do that.
Would you want me to hold your microphone or?
No, thank you, I'll be fine.
Great.
I just bought this drawing from a lovely, talented artist. Her name is Antonia.
AKA Darkness.
She's also called Darkness. And if you see a little girl running around with two red horns, that's her. She's very talented. Yeah. So, and we have a connection because I'm dark too, you know. Sometimes my stories are very dark, and her paintings and drawings are very dark. So, Antonia, you're dope. Love you. Okay. Happy stuff, dark stuff.
Maybe the marriage thing.
The marriage.
160. The marriage thing.
Okay, so we're going to do the marriage thing. And this story, or before I start reading, maybe I should talk about the book a bit. It's called Dreams and Assorted Nightmares. It's a collection of short stories. And someone said, you shouldn't say it's a collection of short stories. It's a loosely connected novel, sort of. Because all the stories are somewhat connected. And the connection is that they are set in this magical, fantastical, very real, very crazy space, right? And this place is called Zango. So Zango is a place that doesn't actually exist, but it also exists because everyone in Nigeria who has read it is like, oh, I know this place. It's like that place that is somewhere where these people do this kind of thing. But in reality, it's a fictional place, and it's something I did because I wanted to have fun, right? And create a space where I could put all sorts of people who could do crazy things. And these crazy things could be related to reality or not, right? But for me, it was just my lab of creating and destroying things. And it was fun doing that, so yeah.
Have you ever been to the real Zango?
I live in Zango. It lives in me, so
Oh, great.
that's where we are. Yeah, so a very brief marriage. The bastards knocked on my door 3 nights after my wedding. I stirred my hennaed feet, caressing the coral blue silk sheets, my toes clipping my husband's bony ankle. Yusuf, as I had discovered over the last 2 days, slept like a turned-off machine, something that required significant effort to reignite. Of course, I had ideas about how to rouse him if I wanted. My tongue, I knew, was an effective key to start any engine. But in the early days of marriage, I thought and had been told that decadence in matrimony is something to be snuck in with time after being sufficiently soused in marital broth. The knocks came again with some bravado and urgency, and I was certain I hadn't imagined them. My first instinct was to look at the clock. I put my hands on Yusuf's shoulders and gave him a proper shake. He grumbled. There's someone at the door, I said. Who? I don't know. It's 2 a.m. Tell them to go away, he mumbled, turning over. Whoever was at the door was getting impatient and gave the door a couple of good kicks. Yusuf staggered out of bed, out of the bedroom. I got up, pulling my nightgown about me, and followed him across the living room to the front door. It was a quaint flat we lived in, with just the one bedroom, a bathroom en suite, and a rather spacious kitchen. Having grown up in the crowded heart of Zango, not far from the cattle market, and some way off Bapa Avenue, I had insisted Yusuf find us a flat in Angon Matasa, Zango's new suburb, with smart new buildings and colonnaded streets, where one often woke up to chirping birds, not honking cars and revving engines. But the peace I sought was threatened at that moment by the raps on the door. Baby, ask who is there first, I whispered to my husband. Why? He barked angrily. Visitors, the night answered. A rush of goosebumps, a jump in my heart propelled me towards my husband until I was inches from him. What visitors? He asked, now fully alert. Friendly ones with guns, knives, and a rather beautiful barandemi, even if I say so myself. The bold voice returned. Open the door, please. What do you want? There was a pause. My friend, there was a cheeriness in the voice now. Why not open the door and find out, huh? This is no way to treat visitors, is it? I don't know you, sir. I don't know what you want. We're only here to pay visits, and we will come in, peacefully or otherwise. But of course, we prefer to be peaceful. Better for everyone that way. Don't you agree, my friend? Yusuf turned to me, his face a collage of confusion and fear. He reached out and held my hand and then turned to the door. Go away. The man outside sighed. My friend, we haven't got all night to play this game. We will give you 30 seconds to open this door. If you don't, we'll break it down, and I promise you, you won't like me then. It was the longest 30 seconds of my life, in which I imagined the man on the other side, smoking weed and looking at his watch, counting down the seconds, in which my heart went through the seasons, dying in the Hamatan, reviving in the rainy season. Even his countdown was delivered with a touch of nonchalance, a dreadful, terrifying assurance. Quickly, our options, which were not many to start with, thinned out. Calling the police guaranteed nothing. They might turn up in the next hour or by daybreak when they were sure the robbers must have left. When the intruder counted down to 0, he sighed. Break it down, he said. After a second's delay, there was a startling bang on the door. I staggered backwards and fell on my backside. Yusuf leapt over me, a gazelle in full flight, his foot brushing my forehead as he sprinted to the bedroom. Even in my terror, I was proud that he was going to get a weapon to scare them off. My man, my hero. But he slammed the bedroom door shut, and I heard the latch violently rattling into place just as another bang came from the front door. The sound of metal tearing, shredding my fate, my reality. My cloud-framed illusions ruptured. I scrambled to the bedroom door, threw my body against the study panel, and bounced off like a stuffed doll. Baby, open the door, I cried. Baby. My tongue too slow to catch up on this betrayal. But fear raised my fist and thumped it on the door. Open the door. The latch remained in the catch. There was silence from both sides of both doors. Yusuf, open the door for me. I was angry now. What stupid game was this? My husband locking me out of the bedroom with bandits trying to knock down the front door. God damn it, open the door. The huge bang ripped more panels off the front door. I hammered on the bedroom door like a demented thing. Anger, shock, and disappointment welled inside me as if thrown into a blender. I heard the front door give way. I wiped away my tears and drew my gown about me. I looked around the living room for something to lay over my body. This purple see-through gown I had worn for my husband would give this man ideas. But then, why did it matter? If my husband had abandoned me to their ravages, why did any of it matter? A final bang. The door flew open, terror pushing me back against the bedroom door. They sauntered in, 3 men, led by a giant who had to stoop to get under the doorframe. Even though he had a mask hiding the lower half of his face, from his bulk, I suspected he was Corey. Legends of the menace of Zango were so vivid that even if I had never seen him before, his build and reputation made him unmistakable. The other men took positions behind him, clutching different weapons. And true, they had a barandami, the sharpened edge of the scythe-like blade gleaming, ready to harvest my head. The giant's eyebrows crinkled up in question. Who are you? This is my house. Who are you? I said. The fire in my voice masked the fear tightening its grip around my throat. I expected the curved blade to swing my way, but I refused to close my eyes, refused to let my bladder go, so I clamped my thighs together. He seemed surprised by the question. The gleam in his eyes suggested he was smiling, amused by my misery. He looked around the living room at the golden curtains I had chosen to give the room a rich imperial ambience, at the puffy furniture, new rugs, the shiny TV stand. We are sons of the wind, he said. But if this is your house, why are you locked out of your own bedroom, Mariah? What use would it be denying us a bride? The still fresh henna patterns on my exposed hands and legs were evident. It's my house. I can be anywhere I want to, can't I said. I knew I wasn't making sense, even to myself. One of them sauntered to me, stood so close to me, and sniffed. If you're tired, I can stop in a moment. Okay? Lele, he said, lovely perfume. Don't look at me like that. I'm a married woman, I said, scowling. Ha ha, ho ho ho. They laughed like idiots watching a puppet theater. I was the puppet, the object of this amusement. You heard her. Don't look at her like that. We're not here for that, the giant said, then turned to me. What's your name? I said nothing. I am not a very good man, Amaria. I hurt people. But today, I'm in a good mood. Or I was, until that Sakari locked his wife out of the bedroom. So please answer my question. Nana Aisha, I said. Nana, we want money, jewelry, and the son of a dog who refused to open the door. I presume that's your husband. I said nothing. What kind of baboon locks his wife out for men like us? He must hate you a lot. Anyirogwan Namuji, one of the bandits said. A real coward indeed, another agreed. Not a coward, the giant said, setting his bulk on my fine sofa. A worthless son of a dog. One with a fine, unfortunate wife like this. Break that door and bring him to me. Amaria, step aside. Let my boys do their work. Thank you.
Wow. So did I promise too much when I said it's definitely worthwhile walking up the stairs, getting a copy, and then don't be greedy. Get a copy for your friend, your mother, or even your husband, if it is if it's the better one.
If they're not going to lock you out of the bedroom.
Yes. So wow, so many questions. One of the things that I love when I read your story, I'm totally in the story. Like if I was in the house and if somebody approaches me or the telephone rings, I don't want to pick up. I thought, who is disturbing me now? I'm reading a very, very important thing here. So the first thing is I noticed you managed in a very fine way to bring you into your world. This Zango that actually lives in you, that you kind of made it up. So what is special about Zango that differs from other places in Nigeria? Because you said it's not maybe Port Harcourt or Lagos.
What is special about Zango? I think it's the ambience, it's the people. It is what constitutes Zango, and it is the bond that Zango has to the people who live in it, and the bond that the people who live in that place have to that place. Right. So Zango is special in a way that everyone who is born there belongs to the town. Right. And most of the people didn't know that at the time. So there's a connection. There's something that holds all of them together. And in this place, when someone dies, they say your leaf has fallen. But most people don't understand why people say that. And the reason is because they used to believe that there's a tree of life and everyone has a leaf on that tree. And if your tree falls, you die. And then somewhere along the line, some people discovered that there might be such a tree somewhere in the forest, and they decided to experiment with that tree. And that's the connection. That's what makes it different from everywhere else.
When you say experiment, would you say you're someone that also experiments with situations that are very, very, very common in that sense? You have married couples all over the world all the time, but then you chose this specific notion of armed robbers. And what are the possibilities of reacting to such an attack? And you choose a very unique way, but then also very human. You could tell the fear in general. What am I going to do? There is no particular plan if something like this happens. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, it is the husband who runs away.
Yeah. I mean, for me, the thing has always fascinated me, and I think this is something that is common to all my works, is that I am interested and intrigued by the sudden, unexpected things that happen to us, right? One day your life is on course, everything is perfect, you think you have the next 5 years planned out, and then one little thing goes wrong, and you have to recalibrate, you have to readjust. Everything about your life, as you know, it changes. And then we make these plans, we don't take into consideration some of these fundamental things, right, that could happen. Like, for instance, going blind, or losing an arm, or losing a finger, or losing something that changes the entire trajectory of your life. So that is something I've always been interested in. And, and that's what happened with this couple. One moment they're like, oh, we have our whole life figured out. We're going to get married. We're going to be happy. We're going to live in a very peaceful part of the town. And then suddenly some people whom you never anticipated in your life, right, knock on your door and everything changes. So, yeah.
And the person I noticed that Amraba said, Amaria, does it mean pride?
It means pride, yeah, in Hausa.
Right. And it is very common to call someone, at least because you mentioned you could still see the henna ink that gave it away.
Yeah. So, especially in the north, if you're getting married, you do this henna designs on your skin. And it's lovely, it's beautiful, And, I mean, even those in the bridal train kind of do that. But in this instance, it was easy to tell. Probably they did their surveillance before coming. But, you see the room, you see the decor, and these are like newly married couples. So,
how long is someone called Amaria?
My stepmom has grandchildren now, and she's still called Amaria. So,
wow.
yeah,
Okay.
like she has several grandchildren, and she's still called Amaria. So it depends on when she comes and who is going to be around her at the time she comes there. Yeah.
Is it considered as a compliment? Is it a way of respect, or is it?
Yeah, it's an acknowledgement of a change in status, right? Before you were single, now you are married and therefore more respectable, and It's like, you've got into a happy place in your life, sort of. But we all know
Like
that's
really.
not always true. So it's wishy-washy.
Oh, except this small looking out of the bedroom. I mean, people should not focus on details. So, one important question, I'm sure everybody has that in mind. How is a married man called?
Ango,
Angu?
Ango, yeah, that's like a groom.
That's groom. And is it a common thing to call people
Oh,
Angu? Just
normally, no. I mean, for the guy, it's like on your wedding day, a few days after, a few weeks after, and then from Angogu you graduate to, from Ango you graduate to Angogu, which is sort of like depends on the translation exactly. Is like you've been robbed, or polished, or beaten, right? So, when they say ango, it's during that honeymoon phase, right? Where you're having fun, it's all lovey-dovey, everything is good, and then a few months after, you start settling into reality, and then you start developing issues, and you stop making fun of your friends who are not married, and then you've become someone who has been beaten by matrimony.
oh wow. So literally you are saying this person is also more respected and
Yeah, I mean, I think with the guys, right, people tend to make more fun of them because there's this thing with young people who get married, they like feel like they've arrived, right? And people who have been there before know that, this is just the beginning. There's that phase, and then eventually you grow over that phase and you face the reality, which is like knocks people hard, right? So they're kind of like, he doesn't know what's coming. So they just call you Ango to kind of indulge you, right? But for the woman, it's different. It's like, her status has grown. She's more respected now. She is sort of a more conservative kind of society, but she has earned a place at the table, sort of.
okay, and then she's free to stay wherever she wants in her house, as she said. You painted in a way, in a situation where it was so shocking, it was on horror, and I was still thinking, oh God, what will I do? Probably I'll just faint.
For her, it's this mixture of fear and shock, right? That the person she expects would protect her has locked her out, and he's there, he's hiding in the room while she's out there. So there's that shock, there's that fear, that, shock in the bedroom that she can't get in, and fear from the outside coming in.
So it's left to the reader to think, what after this episode finishes? Because it seemed like the armed robbers even had some, can we call it even empathy for this situation? Like, I'm a Maria, and then this situation.
The bandits, the head of the bandits, Audu Kori, he's an interesting character. There's more story of him in the book, and he has very weird perspective about things. And one of those perspectives is that a man should be honorable, right, and at least protect his wife. And so he's this guy with a conservative mindset, sort of, right, in a very weird way, in a twisted kind of criminal way, right? And then the man gives up his wife and goes and hide in the bedroom. It doesn't make sense to him. So obviously there's something wrong with this guy, and this guy needs to be corrected. Yeah. So which is the idea of breaking down the door and fetching the guy.
Okay, I see. When you said, basically, when we talk about this book, we say it's a collection of short stories. And then you actually say it's not necessarily a short story in the classical term, if you could speak of classical terms, because they are sort of loosely connected. And that is what is kind of a little bit interesting for me. Is it like you have a place, you have people in it, and then you choose different perspective from which you decide to tell an episode of their story? Or
Yeah,
how?
absolutely. I mean, for me, the idea started with the place, right? And it's always how place impacts on people. Um, you know, if Berliners meet somewhere else, even though they've never met in Berlin, there's a way they recognize each other. I assume that is the case anyway, I don't know, right? Because there's a code you guys share. Um, People from Jos Hey, Johnny. Yeah, we recognize each other anywhere we see ourselves, right? Yeah. So if you come from a place like Jos, right, there's a word you say, and everyone who is from there knows. And even though, even though you guys have never met, you've never sat to agree that this is going to be our thing. It is your thing, right? And I suppose every town, every place has that kind of connection on people. So I was really fascinated about how this culture develops. And I thought, well, if you have this space that is magical and fantastical and very real and brutal sometimes, what kind of people are going to inhabit the space? So, created the stories to fill in the people, and each of these people have a completely different life, completely different objectives, and they're very unique and different, and each of the stories. But then there's that connection that runs through all of them by virtue of being in the same space. That's all.
Questions maybe from the audience. Questions from the audience. Okay. How about this fine gentleman in the first row? Be prepared, please.
I am.
I apologize in advance.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Abubakar, for that beautiful rendition of that amazing book story you've written. No doubt it's another contribution to the zeitgeist, many of which you've made. Now, in your description of the villain, you describe this big, huge criminal thug, and you complete this description with, he was smoking weed. Do you have something against weed?
I think you misheard. I never said he was smoking weed. I said she imagined he was smoking weed. Right?
Please, has anyone another question almost as deep as we just heard?
I like how Leigh thinks I have something against weed, though. That's interesting. We'll probably, yeah. But that's your issue. You know.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm the one who's asking a question now.
Yes, please, go ahead. Welcome.
First of all, very interesting, and I love the way you create the scene. My question is, coming from Africa, are you writing from a position where you yourself has gone through such a trauma?
Are you asking whether he locked out someone as
No,
well?
no. Does he create? I'm a writer. I'm an author. Yeah, and I write out of the pain that I've gone through. So I'm wondering, are you trying to work out a pain that you've gone through?
First of all, you're a lovely dancer. I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
That was great. Thank you. You have to do that again. Yeah.
I will.
Yes. Secondly, no, I don't write to let out some pain. I write because it's fun. I write because I love it. I write because for me that's like breathing, right? And yeah, even though in this book there are lots of wonderful, amazing, funny things that happen, there are lots of horrible things that happen as well. And I can tell you categorically, I had so much fun writing this book because I enjoyed it. I enjoyed creating the horror and the beauty and the love and the hatred and all of it. So for me, it was fun. I understand what you're talking about writing being sort of therapeutic for some people,
Yes.
right? And for me, that's not the case, really. But I do write in acknowledgement of the trauma that everybody in my country has, right? By being exposed to violence, oppression, misgovernance, abuse, and the regular hate we inflict on ourselves as a people. So I'm writing in spite of that. I write in acknowledgement of that, and I include it in my work because it's necessary. Because as a writer, you can't write out of a vacuum, right? And the space I write from is one that is brutal and surrounded by trauma. And then even in this trauma, there's something beautiful and fascinating about it, And you can't deny one in favor of the other. So you have to acknowledge the coexistence of both. So yeah, I respect people who write as a form of therapy. I appreciate that. I also adore people who write art because they art for art's sake, and I think it's a valid thing. And I also respect people like us who write in spite of all of this, but in acknowledgement of all of it as well.
Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Any further questions?
Maybe I'd like to elaborate to her question, because you concluded that some other authors use their pain and they use writing as a medium of therapy. So what do you use as a medium for therapy besides sandwich? No, 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 no. The thing about sandwich was a joke that was told last night by Leye. But this is an insider joke, but you need to speak to Leye about it.
Yeah, I mean, all of you. I recommend all of you go to Leye and find out about the sandwich thing. No, I mean, what do I use as therapy? I don't know. I think to say that I haven't experienced trauma would be a lie. I mean, I grew up in Jos, a beautiful city that was ravaged by communal violence, people doing crazy things that you never imagined they would do. And these were people who have been living together for years, and then suddenly it's like someone snapped a finger and people went crazy and started killing each other. And it's difficult to do it, and I still find it difficult to process. And for the first few years that madness started, my response was to block it out and not address it in my writing, because I felt like it's important, if you're going to be writing as a writer about issues that concern other people, right? You should be honest and sincere. And I didn't feel like at that point in time I would be honest and sincere. I would be prejudiced because I'm coming from this place of seeing people I love being killed and being shot at by people I went to school with and having my house burnt down by people I play football with on Sunday mornings. It didn't make sense to me, but it was important also not to engage with it immediately until I give myself room to process it. And when I did, I just felt it doesn't have to be a story about violence and hatred. It could be a story about love and about picking up the pieces after all of this madness has happened, which is why Season of Crimson Blossoms, deals with a woman who had lost her husband in the violence and is now in a place where she has to piece together her life. So that's where that story came from. So sort of, but at the same time, I'm really opposed to the idea that African writers, for the very reason of being African, have to explain being human, right? Where you have to explain why you are not a savage, why you are not an animal, why you're not a cannibal, right? Why you should be considered human. I find that very insulting, to be honest. So I just write my stories, and I don't feel I need to explain my African experience, whatever that means to people. I just write about people existing, and these people, when they exist, they don't think of themselves as African. They just think of themselves as humans, right? Like I don't wake up in the morning and say, "Good morning, world. I'm a Black African writer, and I'm going to write the African story."
Yes, in the light of the African cupcake. Thank you so much. Oh, wow. Any further questions? We have time for a very short, brief question. Please, Mr. Lay. Oh, unfortunately, the mic is not functioning.
No. Sorry, I noticed you really have beautiful titles in your
Thank
books.
you.
Can you just Yeah, could you just tell me about the process first? And also, is there a particular reason why you're attracted to certain titles?
I love beautiful things. Right? I mean, it's that simple. And I love stories that are beautiful, even when they're about horrible things, you know. And that first point of contact is the title for me. You know, I mean, there are stories that I've written that the title come afterwards, and there's some that the title come before the book. The Whispering Trees. The title story hasn't always been The Whispering Trees. It was something else. It was something very practical and annoying. And then when I finished, I'm like, no, this deserves a better title. You know, so I looked into the story, and there was The Whispering Trees, and that became the title, and that's it. It's that simple. With Season of Crimson Blossoms, I had the title in my head before I had the story, right? The title has always been there, drifting. I'm like, yeah, probably I'll write a story and call it this. And when I started writing the story, I'm like, yeah, this is the story that has this title. And, you know, I think it worked at some point. Dreams and Assorted Nightmares. Yeah, I kind of struggled with this a bit. It was called something else at first, and then subsequently, again, after I finished, you know, the title came, and that's what it is, and that's how it works.
So one final question.
Yes, Abubakar, in Season of Crimson Blossoms, you're one of those writers that we can enjoy your writing on two levels, the story itself and the sheer beauty of the way you tell the story. And you're one of those literary writers who you don't waste words. You don't have flowery language for the sake of it. Everything you write is visual. Just like when you were reading us this beautiful short story, I was in that room. I was trying to hold the man back from running into the bedroom, right? It was real. So my question to you is, she's just destroyed my punchline, sorry. Yeah, it's not going to work anymore.
Well, I mean, thank you,
I
Lee,
do have a question for you, though.
Okay.
This is a real question. What is the one question you wish you would be asked at a panel, but nobody ever asks you?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't think about what other people should be thinking about. I think about what I should be writing and let other people think about what they should be asking.
Oh, great. Sounds great. So in this case, thank you so much. You've been such a wonderful audience.